Hey, it's me, Lathril, and welcome to another Magic the Gathering Puzzle Quest video. In today's video, I'm going to be going over my Mythic chase cards. So, let's get into it. Now, if you're used to my usual video structure for chase cards, or if you saw my last video and I said, hey, welcome to my video, I'm going to be telling you about Mythics and Masterpieces, I got to the end and it had been quite a long time, almost 20 minutes, and I was like, you know what, I respect your guys' time, I'm just going to parcel these out into different videos, and we'll call it good. There's just so many different cards that I have to talk about, I don't want to make you sit down and watch a 50-minute video and listen to me talk for that long, so we're going to go ahead and parcel these out into separate videos. So if you saw the previous one, you're like, hey, why is this its own video? It's just in the interest of your time and sittings and all that kind of stuff. Don't worry, all the videos are still getting out. You'll still be able to see them all if you want to see them all, but I'm trying to respect your time, so yeah, okay. First one, Alrund's Epiphany. So this is going to be a 16 mana blue spell. You're going to create 4 bird illusion tokens, and that's it. There's no other reason to use it. No, I'm kidding. Who cares about bird illusions? Then exile this card and gain an extra swap. So gaining extra swaps is always cool. 16 mana to gain an extra swap is definitely too much, but it also has on the bottom, if this card was foretold, create 8 bird illusion tokens and gain 2 extra swaps instead. Then exile this card. I feel like this card is just like a picture of Billy Mays, if like Billy Mays got a lot older and got like a trident thing and was like, Billy Mays here with you're going to get 2 extra swaps instead, which totally makes this really cool. So this card is very low on my chase list just because it doesn't scream power to me. If Foretell winds up being a really good mechanic, then this will actually be a really good card. If Foretell does not wind up being a really good mechanic, then I see it as being a card that's really not going to get very much use. So it really comes down to, do we like Foretell, yes or no? So it's low on the chase list, but it could be very good, and that's why it's here. Burning Rune Demon. This is 16 for an 8/8. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may destroy another target creature you control. If you do, this creature gets +6/+6 and gains Berserker until end of turn. When this creature enters the battlefield, pick one of the first 2 different cards from your library that are not named Burning Rune Demon, fetch that card, then destroy the other card and your opponent loses X life. X is that card's base mana cost. So already this is 16 for an 8/8. Black generally struggles with powerful creatures, and 16 for an 8/8 flying is actually very respectable. I also like that at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose to destroy another creature you control. I'm pretty sure that based on the way that this is worded, the +6/+6 and gains Berserker until end of turn means that the +6/+6 is only until end of turn for destroying that creature. But nonetheless, if you turn this thing into a 14/14 with flying, you're probably going to be destroying whatever creature your opponent has on the battlefield. So I like that this is able to make it so you kind of sacrifice a creature to destroy a creature. It's not the best card in the set for sacrifice a creature to destroy a creature, but nonetheless, it still gives it additional utility beyond the bottom ability, which is absolutely phenomenal. So when this creature enters the battlefield, pick one of the first 2 different cards that are not named Burning Rune Demon, fetch it, destroy the other, and then your opponent loses X life, where X is that card's base mana cost, is an incredibly powerful ability for a whole bunch of reasons. One, we can flicker this thing so it leaves and re-enters the battlefield every single turn with something like that. So this is something that we could be doing every single turn. Secondly, it's dumping extra stuff in the graveyard, and we get to choose what goes into the graveyard. And thirdly, when we're dumping those things into the graveyard, it's going to be doing damage to our opponent based on that card's mana cost. So we could probably do some pretty wacky things with this card, have some higher mana cost cards in our deck, and then just sort of laugh as we whap our opponent with it. It kind of makes me almost want to try a Cryptborn Horror deck, which is a 40 mana garbage card, but nonetheless, if we choose to just make sure that that's the thing that gets tossed, we just get to start whapping our opponent for 40 damage because that thing has 40 base mana cost. So I see this as actually being a legitimately powerful card that I will absolutely be running in events, depending on like what objectives are and whatnot. But this is a phenomenal card all around. It's higher up on my chase list for Mythics. Calamitybearer, 17 mana for a 3/4 with Berserker and Double Strike. This is a giant Berserker, and while on the battlefield, your giant creatures get +3/+3 and gain Double Strike. I mean, I feel like just all of your creatures having Double Strike and getting that additional +3/+3 buff is enough to explain why I like this card. There are a lot of giants, they're a pretty cool tribe in the set, and so it's going to be really easy to just make a giant deck and go, hoo-ha, smack, 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 smack. So all the giants having double strike is entirely terrifying. This particular creature is not super powerful on its own in that it's just a 6/7, but a 6/7 for 17 isn't bad. The only real downside to this card is that when it reinforces, it's not going to get that +3/+3 buff from itself, like stacking. It's just going to be a 3/4 when it reinforces. So nonetheless, the pro of giving everything double strike and it having double strike definitely outweighs that. This is a really cool card. I do quite want it. It's sort of in like the mid tier of what I want. Doomscar. This is 14 mana for a foretell spell. It's white, destroy all creatures. And then if you foretold it, destroy all creatures and then destroy all your foretold tokens. So this seems like a really good enabler for a foretell just because it's going to wipe the board and then it's going to take all of your foretold tokens and just bring them back to your hand with full mana. So you're going to wipe the board and then you're going to get the advantage by having a whole bunch of free things in your hand that you're just going to immediately be able to drop down. So I do quite like this card. Once again, if Foretell winds up being a useful mechanic, then this is going to be a phenomenal card. If we have to deal with a bunch of Foretell stuff in events, then this is going to be a super phenomenal card, just in that it is both removal and is going to give us a leg up on getting our Foretell things back on the battlefield. So I do quite like Doomscar. Cool card. This is also on like the middle of my list. Dragonkin Berserker. So this is 11 for a 5/5. It's got First Strike and Boast. As long as your opponent controls a creature with toughness lesser than this creature's power, this creature gains Berserker. Boast 10, create a red dragon token, and when a creature you control boasts, the first dragon card in your hand gains 6 mana. So there's a few things to break down with this. The first thing is that first part of the ability. As long as your opponent controls a creature with toughness lesser than this creature's power, this creature gains Berserker. So because this thing has First Strike, if this thing has power greater than an opposing creature's toughness, that means that unless that thing has First Strike, it just means that this just guaranteed gets to kill your opponent's creature. So if you just buff this thing a little bit, it's probably just going to be able to just auto-wipe out your opponent's critters and stay alive. So that alone actually makes this a fairly valuable card. But then it also has like these sort of gimmicky abilities. Honestly, if it didn't have the other abilities, I would still like this card, but whatever. So the Boast 10 to create a red dragon token, I don't quite like a whole bunch just because you're paying 10 mana to get a 5/5 flying dragon, which is like, I mean, I know that you can get it every turn, but that's not super great. And then when a creature you control boasts, the first dragon card in your hand gains 6 mana. So this could be actually kind of interesting because if you're running a bunch of things that boast, you could just have a single dragon in your hand that serves as a mana battery so that when you boast, the dragon is going to gain mana that then you could use to drain for the next critter with Boast, which is just going to give that dragon mana again. So that's really where I see that being potentially interesting, in that you could use a dragon as a mana battery. But other than that, this just really seems like a cool card for just sort of wiping away our opponent's creatures. So if we need to be using Boast in events, and I'm pretty sure we actually do have to use Boast in one of the new events, I think that this could be a pretty cool card to throw into your deck. Eradicator Valkyrie. So this is 16 for a 7/6 with flying and lifelink. It also has Boast. The Boast cost is 7, so you have to drain 7 mana from your hand when it attacks. As long as your opponent controls a Vanguard, this creature gains hexproof. Realistically, I don't see the opponent having a Vanguard all too often. I mean, you could use this with the new Tibalt Planeswalker, where his third ability is going to put a Vanguard on your opponent's side of the battlefield, and then you've got yourself a 7/6 flying, lifelink, hexproof, and then the Boast ability critter, which is quite good. So I definitely would use this in New Tibalt. But even outside of New Tibalt, I will definitely get a lot of use out of this card, in part because it has lifelink, and in part because of the second ability, which is the Boast ability, which is to destroy the first other creature you control. If you do, destroy the first opposing creature. So this is kind of the better version of the demon in terms of sacrificing a creature of yours to get rid of a creature of your opponent's. Just because with this one's Boast, you're guaranteed to destroy the opposing creature, regardless of its power toughness. You don't have to deal with, oh, it's maybe got Death Touch, or maybe it's got a power that is greater than my demon's toughness. No, this just is, you're going to destroy your first other creature to destroy the first opposing creature. And because it's Boast, it's sort of a May ability, and by sort of, I mean entirely a May ability. And so you only do this if you need to be able to get rid of your opponent's creatures, and you just don't quite have a removal card in your hand. So it lets you turn creatures on the battlefield into removal. And if you're playing black, this day and age, you're probably going to be using something that's going to be bringing stuff back from the graveyard anyways. and so you might be able to just make it so you get the critters back that you're throwing away anyways. This card is really cool to me, not just the art, because I think the art is really cool, but just that we've got a black creature that's very solid that could have hexproof and lifelink and is going to serve as removal. Black has gotten some really great creatures in this set. I see black just getting even better with this set, and it's already in a really good place. The best place it's been since I've started playing Puzzle Quest. So, really cool card. This one's very high up on my list. Faceless Haven. This is the second one of those cards that's going to be creating Realm Walker tokens, but let's unpack the card. So it's 9 mana, it's a snow support, it's a snow land. At the beginning of your turn, create 3 snow gems. When a player matches 2 or more snow gems, and when it says a player, that means you or an opponent. If you control 2 or fewer creatures, you're going to create a copy of Realm Walker on the battlefield under your control. Otherwise, your first creature gets +4/+4 and gains vigilance until end of turn. So this is kind of cool in that, like, if you're going to be creating a whole bunch of snow gems, realistically speaking, your opponent's probably going to start matching them too, which means that on your opponent's turn, they're going to match gems and give one of your critters a power toughness buff, and give it vigilance. So vigilance is kind of really cool for this because it means that it's going to block only if it doesn't die. So you don't have to worry about it buffing your critter and then the critter dying because it's getting vigilance. It's just going to block if it's going to kill their creature and not yours. So it's kind of like a free opportunity to kill one of your opponent's creatures. I see this as another one of those enablers for just creating a bunch of snow gems. We have a whole bunch of stuff that creates snow gems. This is one of them. I could see this being fun in a Realm Walker sort of deck. So you put all the different Realm Walker pieces together and voila. Could be cool. I don't know. We'll have to see. But nonetheless, I like the general feel of it. This is really low on my chase list. I see it as being kind of like the Eldrazi Monument or the Forgotten Monument or whatever that was from the previous set, just because it's one of those things that could be gimmicky and like strong in a gimmicky sense, but isn't something that you'd be like, oh yeah, this is the best thing in the set. So I want to play with it, but it's not like an overpowered sort of thing. Haunting Voyage. I love this card. So this is 14 mana. It's got Foretell for 4. So a Foretell thing with 4 shields, I think. And then pick 2 of the first 4 different creature cards from your graveyard. Return those creatures to play under your control. Solid. At the very least, 14 mana to get 2 creatures from your graveyard and put them on the battlefield. If you're playing with Garuda, which I definitely will be, then I'm going to be bringing Garuda back, which is going to dump a whole bunch more stuff in my graveyard, and probably something else that has a pretty neat enter the battlefield effect. But if that wasn't all, it has the Foretold ability. So if you were to foretell this instead, if this card was foretold, pick 3 of the first 4 different creature cards from your graveyard instead, then return those cards to play under your control with their reinforcements. So basically, if you foretell this thing, if you're playing a 3-creature deck, which realistically you should be, I know that there's some excuses to run something like Otrimi or some other mutator and go 4 creatures, but if you're running this, you definitely just go ahead and run like a 3-critter deck, and then all of a sudden you get all of your creatures back from the graveyard. You put Otrimi with this thing, you get a whole bunch of things in your graveyard, and then voila, 1 casting of this, and the world is yours. This is an incredibly powerful card. This is very high up on my chase list, especially as I love playing the Liliana Death's Majesty, I think she is, that just dumps a whole bunch of things in your graveyard. So yeah, this card, very, very cool. Could be very, very strong. Immersed Predator. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing Immersed wrong, but that's okay, whatever. So this is a 17 mana for a 6/6 flying vampire dragon. I mean, it's kind of cool that we got a vampire dragon. Once again, I love dragons. Dragon's super cool. Vampire dragon, kind of cool too. Although, like, seriously, what's this thing going to get enough blood from to be a vampire? You know, like, if you just think about it, it's going to have to find, like, other dragons or something. But, like, what's going to be big enough to, like, I guess creatures that Koth makes. But other than that, you know, I don't know. So when you make your first match during your turn, you may destroy the last other creature you control. If you do, this creature gains Berserker and prevent damage until end of turn. So that's just kind of like the angel and the demon that we saw earlier. We can sack our creatures to make it so that we go and wappy and kill our opponent's creatures, which is kind of cool. And then when this creature attacks, exile the last creature card from target player's graveyard, and this creature gets a permanent +X/+X. X is that creature's base power. So something that you could do with this, as an example, is you make your first match on your turn, you destroy your other last creature, and then when this thing attacks, you then exile that critter to give this thing a permanent power toughness buff. Power toughness buff. Woof! That was just way harder than it should have been. And then it's going to get Berserker and prevent damage, so it's going to whap and kill your opponent's creature. So then the next time this thing attacks, you're now going to exile the critter from your opponent's graveyard, and boom, it's going to get the power toughness buff from that too. So stacking one creature can turn into you get 2 separate power toughness buffs, and then this thing just gets like really big and flying and all that kind of stuff. So this is a really cool card. It's kind of like in the middle level of my chase list because it could be very strong and it could just be sort of meh. But I'm leaning toward this is going to be a pretty strong card, especially since you just get to exile something every turn. And if you're playing with stuff that's going to be dumping things in the graveyard, then you're going to be able to do some wacky stuff. Coma, Cosmo Serpent. Oh yeah, this card's cool. So it's 21 for a 9/9. It can't have its mana drained or raised. At the beginning of each player's turn, populate 2 times. I mentioned in the Masterpiece video about the Merit Lage token, if that thing turns out to be a 20/20. This thing populates twice at the beginning of each player's turn. Your turn, populate twice. Opponent's turn, populate twice. If you've got any kind of powerful token that you can make in your deck, this thing is going to be making 4 of those tokens for every single one of your turns, which is super crazy, ridiculously strong. This card is a phenomenal card. Think of using this, for example, in a Kiora deck, right? You pop Kiora's third ability, you get those octopus tokens, those 8/8 reach tokens. Well, this thing is going to make it so that every single one of your turns, you're getting 4 more of those, right? Because your opponent's turn, 2 more of those octopus tokens. Your turn again, 2 more of those octopus tokens. Your opponent's turn, 2 more of those octopus tokens, and so on and so forth. It's just such a disgusting card. This card is really, really good. And then at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may destroy target token creature you control. Let's face it, you're probably almost never going to do that. If you do, the first opposing creature is disabled until the beginning of your next turn. Kiora's tentacle tokens are worth way more than disabling a creature. Then if the destroyed creature was reinforced 9 or more times, this creature gets +X/+X and gains hexproof until the beginning of your next turn. X is 3 plus that creature's reinforcements. If you got rid of 9 tentacles, that's 72 damage. So 72 is much better than 9 + 3 for 12. Just saying. You're probably never going to use the second ability. But populate twice every single turn makes this ridiculous. This card is really good. This is very high on my chase list, by the way, like very high. It's not the number 1 card because there's something that's absolutely busted in this set that we're going to be seeing very soon. But this is pretty high up on my list. Lathril, Blade of the Elves. This is almost assuredly going to be an exclusive that you have to buy from the vault because this was one of the commander deck generals, and all of the different commander deck things that have come out in Puzzle Quest have all been exclusives. So I'm guessing that this is going to be an exclusive. So this is 15 for a 4/5. It's got Menace. When this creature deals damage to your opponent's planeswalker, create X elf warrior tokens. X is equal to this creature's base power times its reinforcements. Okay, that's going to be a heck of a lot of elf tokens. And if you've got the elf token leader, you're going to be able to do wacky things, especially if you run like this thing with the elf token leader in a black deck where you're sacrificing your critters, and then you're just going to make that elf token do like crazy big. It also has when an elf creature you control attacks, if it's reinforced 10 or more times, your opponent loses 10 life and you gain 10 life. So all around, this is a phenomenal card. I don't know that this is going to be a card that you absolutely must no matter what have, but for the cards that look to me like they're probably going to be exclusives, this is the one that stood out to me the most as like, yeah, I really like this one. It's a really cool card. Rise of the Dreadman. Dreadmarn. Well, okay, well there I go, like stereotyping that all these dead things are men. They're not. They're Marns. They're not men. So excuse me. Anyways, Rise of the Dreadmarn. So this is 10 mana. Create X zombie tokens. X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. Okay, like right there, that's pretty solid, right? If you're running a bunch of mill stuff, you're going to be able to easily get somewhere in the realm of 10 to 20 critters in your graveyard. So that means you're getting 20 to 40 power in zombie tokens, which is really good. And then if this card was foretold, X is actually the number of creatures in all graveyards instead. So if you didn't already have a reason to get Necromancer's Covenant from the Daxos versus Calamity event, which is going to make it so that a whole bunch more zombie tokens are going to come out and all your zombies have haste, yeah, you definitely want to go ahead and make sure that you pick Daxos. Please do. And then you get that card because it's going to definitely be really strong. If I get this card in the early going, I will absolutely make a video on it in conjunction with Necromancer's Covenant just to show off the incredible power of the two of them together, as I still am, sadly, at the time of making this video, the only player in the game that has Necromancer's Covenant. So yes, this is an advertisement. Go and pick Daxos, get Necromancer's Covenant, and enjoy it with this card because these are going to be really strong together. Very much worth it. Starnheim Unleashed. 8 mana to create a Vigilant Angel token. That Vigilant Angel token is probably just going to be a 4/4 flying Vigilant token. Not worth it. But if the Foretell winds up being good, then this is absolutely worth it. So if this card was foretold, create 4 Vigilant Angel tokens instead. So that's going to be, you make, for this 8 mana thing, you're going to be making a 16/16 with flying and vigilance. So that's quite strong, especially as you just exile it from your hand. And then if the support gets popped, you get to go ahead and put these things on the battlefield. So you don't actually really have to pay any mana yourself. Very, very good. Sword of the Realms. This is going to be a 12 mana support. It's got that new Herald for 17. I'm pretty sure what Herald does now. So I haven't been told, but I'm pretty sure. So Herald 17 means that the Helvar, which is I think the god on the flip side of this. Oh, it's Halvar. It's written on the card. What are you doing, man? I don't know. Who knows? It's late. I've already said this. Whatever. Anywho. So that means that Halvar is going to cost 17 mana, right? So the way that Herald works is if you cast this card, right, you have to cast it as Sword of the Realms first. And then once Sword of the Realms is down, then if you get another copy and you cast another copy, that other copy is going to cost you 17 mana instead of costing you 12 mana, and it's going to come in as Halvar, God of Battle. But nonetheless, this is a good enough side that just the Sword of the Realms will make it worth it. But Halvar, I think, is going to be a pretty phenomenal card in Puzzle Quest also. But I'm not going to be basing this on what Halvar does just because I don't know what Halvar does yet. So while on the board, your first creature gets +6/+2 and gains Vigilance, which, okay. And then when your first creature dies, you may return that creature to your hand and immediately give it half its mana. That right there is already really cool, right? I really like that, especially with all the stuff that we have that's going to sacrifice our creatures. We can sort of sacrifice creatures and then have them come back and all that kind of good stuff. So yeah, this is a really cool card. I quite like this. The Prismatic Bridge. Okay, this is the end-all, be-all, like, best card in the set, and I don't see how this isn't. This card is just so darn good. It's ridiculous. It's phenomenal. It's crazy. So the Prismatic Bridge is 20 mana. It's legendary. It's got that new Herald thing. So if you play another one, you're going to get Astika, God of the Tree. Who cares what Astika does? It doesn't matter. It could even almost be, although it couldn't actually be because that would be terrible, like Phage, where it's like, if it's special summoned, you lose the game. But this card is ridiculous. So, at the beginning of your turn, fetch the first support card with Herald, creature, or Vanguard from your library. Move that card to play under your control. So, this is ridiculous because it's kind of like Killer Instinct, but for every single color, right? At the beginning of your turn, fetch the first support card with Herald, creature, or Vanguard from your library, and move that to play under your control. Like, every single turn, you're just going to be fetching it and putting it on the battlefield, and you're not even going to have to sacrifice it. Now, there is one potential way in which we're reading this, and we go, you know what? It's actually a little bit different. And even if it is, you know what? Actually, it's a little bit different. It would still be a really good card. So it could actually be that when you fetch the first support card with Herald, creature, or Vanguard from your library, the creature, Vanguard, or support has to have Herald. So it could just be fetch the first card with Herald from your library, which, would then reduce the power level of this. But I don't think that's what it is. If we wind up playing with this and it turns out that that's what it is, then, oh well, this will not be the number one card in the set. But if it does not require it to be Herald, it is without a doubt, no questions asked, the most powerful card in the set. This thing is absolutely ridiculous. So we'll have to see what all the different gods in the set do. I mean, this could wind up being something that you'll wind up being like, I must have this no matter what anyways, if the gods are really good. But nonetheless, really, really cool card. This is the number one chase card for me, and then I'll just have to see if it indeed requires a card to have Herald or not. If it doesn't, oh good gracious, watch out. Every single deck is going to run this when people get it. Every single deck. So just beware. This card is going to be a new meta defining card if it's just like fetch the next creature. You just go Vanguardless. You go just creatures and laugh as you just rip your opponent to shreds. The World Tree. 12 mana, support card, land. At the beginning of your turn, convert 3 gems to green. Then if you control 3 or more land supports, convert 2 gems to your Planeswalker's colors. If you're playing mono green, you're probably going to get to those lands really quickly. So this is really just like convert 5 gems to your color, which is definitely the most that any land is done just for just like a base, go ahead and convert gems. I'm saying that something like Storm the Vault does not count because you had to flip it and have other requirements met. This card is going to be really good. And that's not all it does. When this support is destroyed, you may drain 15 mana from your hand. If you do, fetch up to the first 5 different god cards or cards with Herald from your library and move those cards to play under your control. So, boom, your opponent destroys this thing. If you have mana just sitting in your hand, oh, poor opponent, you're going to get 5 different cards, up to 5, right? Really powerful cards. And if you're running World Tree with, I don't know, the Prismatic Bridge, oh no, you just destroyed my World Tree with your Demolish. Shame on you. Bad play. The Prismatic Bridge is now out, and now you're going to get wrecked. So, really scary card, honestly. Like, super terrifying card. I am absolutely going to be playing the heck out of this card, even in like Nissa of Shadowed Bows, whose abilities all make lands, which is going to make it really easy to just get additional gem conversion out of this card. So yeah, the World Tree, absolutely phenomenal card. One of the cards I want the most in the set. Voranklex, Monstrous Raider, 23 mana, 9/9, haste, trample. When another card effect buffs a creature you control, proliferate. This effect can trigger up to 3 times per turn. When an opposing creature is buffed, that creature loses all of its reinforcements. So I really quickly want to say, when I was talking about the Merit Lage token and I was saying that you could go ahead and populate it with this thing, I was wrong. This thing proliferates. It does not populate. Forgive me. That was wrong. But nonetheless, this is still a pretty cool card, just in that it proliferates 3 times per turn. And then when an opposing creature is buffed, that creature loses all of its reinforcements. This isn't like a card that I'm like, ooh, I have to have this day one. But like, if your opponent's playing a token deck, and oh man, like you could even just be running a buff card in your hand, like Mantle of Webs, and then your opponent plays like some kind of crazy token stack, and then you just Mantle of Webs that token stack, buffing it, and then they're all gone. So yeah, pretty funny things that you can do with this card. I do want to try it out. I do want to mess around with the proliferate from this card, as that could be really strong. It is definitely really cool. So that's it for the Mythics. I split it into another video because, like I said, with the masterpieces, that went on for like 20 minutes, and then we're already at minute 27 of this one, so that means that video would have been going on like 50 minutes. I didn't want to do that to you guys, so we got separate videos. So let me know which cards you're looking out for the most from the Mythic and Masterpiece range. I'll be posting both of these videos together, and then I'll be posting the rares, commons, and uncommons separately. So thank you so much for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one.